A few weeks ago, I showcased the incredible Promised Worlds mod, a mod that added the Debdeb and now tuned systems, the interstellar destinations that were promised to us would be in Kerbal Space Program 2 to KSP 1. There are two ways of reaching the Debdeb system. The first is to use a mod like Far Future Technologies to build an advanced interstellar craft and perform the gigantic burn required to traverse the vastness of interstellar space to get to Debdeb the proper way. However, there is also option 2. The Promised Worlds developers added a wormhole in orbit of Dres, and if you fly a ship through it, you will be warped to Debdeb for free. Well, I say for free, but in reality, just getting from Kerbin to Dres orbit and subsequently through the wormhole takes a surprisingly massive amount of fuel, leaving you with potentially only very limited range when you reach the Debdeb system. So, in my video showcasing the Promised Worlds mod, I built a craft powered by a Cal overclock drive, giving me infinite Delta V and Star Trek warp drive levels of acceleration, just so I could, showcase as much of the mod as possible. But bit cheaty, isn't it? I wanted to visit Debdeb properly, and I thought, what better way to do that than build the craft currently coming together on screen? Establish a permanent gateway base in orbit of Dres that has enormous liquid fuel reserves and has a mining ship that can continuously go down to the surface of Dres, mine ore and synthesize fuel, and keep the station continuously topped up with 18,000 units of liquid fuel, more than enough to refuel a stock interstellar vessel, making the journey through the wormhole to Dres. And hey, even if it isn't enough to fully refuel the ship, well, its crew can just chill on board the Dres Gateway Station for a few days, with the mining ship making as many journeys to and from the surface of Dres as required to completely fill the interstellar ship's fuel tanks. Now, I've played with some amazing space station mods over the years, and I almost decided to make use of some of those to build the Dres Gateway. However, I decided to go pure stock for this, since I figured that the wormhole feature of Promised Worlds is for the benefit of players who don't want to use excessive parts mods, so stock parts only here, so that if you are one of those players, you can use this build and video as inspiration for your very own Dres Gateway. Or, if you're a Patreon supporter or a YouTube member, you will have your own separate version of this video, linked below if you didn't get that, that'll have the craft file available as a download in the video description. Right now on screen, I'm still just currently constructing the actual mining vessel. Now, I was a little bit torn on how to do this. My first idea was to have a separate mining base, probably in the form of a big rover, that would live on the surface of Dres forever, and then a separate fueling ship would just go down and dock with it and then launch back up to the space station. Very similar to what me and Beardy Penguin did during our KSP esports event all the way back in 2023 when we did our big, MUN refueling base. That's what we did. But I thought, for simplicity's sake, it would be easier if the mining base and the refueling ship were one ship. So the is just a giant lander with the biggest liquid fuel tank in the game that has 9,000 units of liquid fuel, I think, and that just goes down and fills up its big liquid fuel tank and then goes to the space station, and then those are the only two components to this system at this stage. I did realize after I finished doing all of this and came to editing, I was like, I may have limited myself somewhat here, because we can only realistically refuel liquid fuel tanks. So, I envisioned like, interstellar craft would be powered by the nuclear engines, right? The most efficient engines in the game. Technically, I know the ion engine has use cases where it's more efficient, but generally speaking, the nuclear engine is the king. But, going down to the surface of certain things like slate, slates. Oh, what's it called? Char? I think it's called Char, yeah. Basically, they're very high gravity bodies in the Debdeb system. Totally unfeasible to have a lander powered by nuclear engines. Really, you need the power of a chemical rocket engine like the Mastodon or the Vector or something. And so maybe I should, at some point, maybe in the future, just expand this little operation here by adding another lander that can bring oxidizer and liquid fuel from the surface of Dres, or just expand the tanks on board the space station as well. I'm not really sure, but I think this is a really nice sort of starting off point, basically. Now, technically, this is not the first episode I've done in which I begin building out interstellar infrastructure around Dres. A few weeks ago, I showcased the mod Proxima's Better Dres, which basically overhauls Dres to make it a lot better and a lot closer to how it was in Kerbal Space Program 2, which was, KSP2 did a lot of things very, very well. It did a lot of things very, very badly. But one of the things it did very, very well was it really, really upgraded planets like Dres, Elu, Val. I know Val's a moon, but it really, really did a good job at revamping Val. And so, yeah, there are now mods that kind of try and emulate the planets that we saw in Kerbal Space Program 2. I guess, Promised Worlds is technically one of those, although none of these worlds were ever playable in Kerbal Space Program 2. Anyway, I've talked over the rest of the build, haven't I? But as you can see, we've got a space station with a stock spinning gravity ring, and now we're in the tracking station, so we can time warp to a Dres transfer window. Now I'm going to do this properly. I'm going to use Kerbal Alarm Clock using the transfer window planner. Hopefully what's on screen is just, self-explanatory. If you want to do things manually, then basically Dres needs to be about 82 degrees ahead of Kerbin. So draw a line from Kerbin to the sun to Dres. The angle that line forms of the sun should be about 82 degrees if you want to eyeball it. There's me briefly showcasing that angle using the mouse cursor, but now that's all gone. We have crossfaded to a lovely sunny day with a scattering of volumetric clouds. And there is the rocket on the launch pad, a very realistic launch vehicle, I think we can all agree, getting ready to launch. And we are off kind of slow initially. The thrust-weight ratio of our first stage is not the best because this vessel is absolutely massive, so let's just go ahead and start speeding the footage up to make the video a little bit more watchable. I mean, I say that the thrust-weight ratio is not great on this first stage, but this stage probably has the best thrust-weight ratio out of any subsequent stage in this vehicle. It's it's very, very, very poor thrust-weight ratio throughout this video, really. I don't think I can really remember the last time I had to make such liberal use of these speed-up tools available in Vegas Pro. Like, parts of this video are going to be sped up like 15, 20 times normal speed because we only have 4 nuclear engines to power this thing all the way to Dres. The thrust rate ratio was abysmal. I think it was literally like 0.06 in low Kerbin orbit, to give you an idea of just how painful this was. I mean, I think to film it, basically I've got like a tablet, and I was watching like YouTube videos whilst recording this because most of my time spent filming this mission was me sitting there waiting for burns to finish. And so I think I got through about 3.5 hours worth of YouTube videos just by waiting for the craft to do its burn. So make of that what you will. I guess you could say I had kind of a tortuous experience in some way filming this mission, but not as tortuous as poor old Durley Kerman's life going forward. I don't know why I thought it'd be funny to just have like one Kerbal to just permanently crew this station as some sort of like, I don't know, like purgatory. Oh, we've got a staging event coming up. Good separation. Make sure the craft definitely gets clear, and then we're going to fire up those... Oh, there we are, we've fired up our mainsail second stage engines. I think part of the build time-lapse got corrupted or cut off or something, because I remember when I was editing the time-lapse, I didn't actually add the mainsail engine, they just sort of appeared. But those are the mainsail engines, in case you were curious what they were. And yeah, those massive lower stage boosters are rapidly disappearing. But yeah, I've got Durley Kerman there. Durley is an engineer Kerbal, I believe, just to kind of keep things running, really. So the plan is he can just maintain the lander. So this whole thing is fully autonomous if we want it to be. So there is a probe core on board, not only the lander, but on board the space station as well. So if there are no kind of interstellar missions ongoing, the lander can just autonomously go back and forth from the space station down to the surface, make sure everything is nice and topped up. But I thought, it'd be nice if there was like an engineer Kerbal so that it kind of makes sense. There is some sort of, there's a space frog there, just kind of keep things tickety-boo running and all that good stuff. And then I just thought it'd be funny if it was just like one Kerbal. So I don't know. So yeah, maybe that's kind of like messed up. Maybe this is like there's like a psychologist watching that's going to diagnose me with some sort of, antisocial behavioural disorder. But, I don't know. I think as far as what people have done to their Kerbals, this is probably on the milder end of the spectrum. Another little staging event going on just here. Yeah, we kind of a little bit overkill using those separatrons. During a test flight of this, I didn't actually make it to orbit. I know we're not technically in orbit, but our pay-axis is 67 kilometers, so this is essentially an orbit, right? Yeah, but I didn't quite make it to orbit on a test flight, so I added the separatrons to make sure that those mainsail stages could definitely get pulled away from the rocket. But yeah, it was fine. I guess it was overkill. And so yeah, like I say, we're more or less orbital. Our pay-axis is now 69 nice kilometers above the surface, so just a very small burn. As you see, the burn to circularize and make sure our pay-axis is above the border with the atmosphere. The burn's only going to be 27.3 meters per second, so a tiny burn by every objective measure. And yet the burn time is 34 seconds, which is quite long for such a minimal burn. We're going to have to do some burns later on that are like 2.5 kilometers per second of change in velocity required. So yeah, we're in for some, well, I was in for some real slogs. Like I said, for you guys, it's going to be sped up, should be nice and entertaining, and I'm kind of looking forward to watching this video back and seeing the that very slow passage of real time just shoot by in an instant. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And so if you like it when that happens, then you know what to do. Hit that little like button down below, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, especially if you're a YouTube member. I'm not doing YouTube member videos anymore. I made a little announcement video about this, but it didn't get that many views, and I feel like this video will get more views than that. So little PSA, if you're a YouTube member, I'm not doing YouTube members videos anymore because I don't like the fact that YouTube's like recommendation algorithm is just spamming everyone with YouTube member exclusives. Like, I'm not subscribed to lots of YouTube channels, and now I feel like not most, but a huge number of the recommendations I'm getting from those channels are the member exclusive videos. And I don't really want to like divide my audience like that. So I am still doing YouTube member exclusive videos, but now it will be like pushed to you as a post on my channel page. So if you ring the bell, if you're a member, then you'll get a notification whenever I make a post that's for members, and that won't show, well, at the moment it doesn't show up for non-members. Maybe they'll change it, but it doesn't show up for non-members as far as I'm aware. Please someone correct me if I'm wrong about this. So it will then mean that the YouTube members still get their exclusive content that they paid for, but the non-YouTube members won't get like inundated with recommendations of videos that they can't watch. I think the two videos that get recommended the most to non-members are the European Space Shuttle video and the Mr. Overfloater SSTO video. The Mr. Overfloater SSTO video I have now made public as of a few weeks ago as a separate upload, so the members one I guess does still exist, but the thumbnail for the public one is now the same. And the European Space Shuttle video, that was actually just a timed exclusive. Like that was like a week before, and then I posted the full video for everyone like a week later. So you just like type in on YouTube search, I don't know, Matt Lowne European Space Shuttle, that should come up. I've done a couple, but one was like a few years ago now, so I imagine it'll be the more recent one that was a YouTube member exclusive for a period will be the one that comes up, and you can watch that. So I don't have any videos on YouTube members that really, apart from rubbish like work in progress, just say, hey, this isn't done, but here, if you want to like listen to the commentary that hasn't got any video track associated with it so far, then here you go. So yeah, that's my announcement. I feel like I've not really been talking much about what's going on in the video, but I hope at this point that you've at least seen one of my interplanetary videos, right? You kind of know the drill. Because we've got such poor thrust-weight ratio, I've had to split the burn that's going to get us from low curb to Dres into multiple passes. Just so that we're spending as much time as possible at curb in periapsis to make as much use of the O-berth effect as possible. And second reason, if we were to do it as one giant single burn, we'd end up with a fairly inaccurate, well, what we end up with would not be kind of what the maneuver node said we would be ending up with. And also, we'd probably end up dipping below 70 kilometers during that burn, because so much of that burn is going to have to be spent before the maneuver node, which is going to be pointing directly radially in. So there's too much of a risk of lowering our periapsis, I should say, to be within the atmosphere. So all things together, those are the kind of the main reasons why I did that. But it's all done now. Now we are heading into interplanetary space, or at least we will be after this one final burn. So I don't know why I said this is all done now. I get a bit ahead of myself sometimes. What can I say? So I guess it's kind of cruel that I've got Dirtly coming there in basically the one command pod that does not have a window. And in fact, it does have a window, but it's inside a service module, and the service module door is closed. So how cruel does that be? I could have put him in like the gravity rings. He's got that nice, spacious ring to traverse, and then obviously there's like crew tubes that connect the ring to the spacecraft. So he's got that whole front space station to just chill out in. But no, he's just in a tiny little one-seat command pod inside the lander, which itself is inside a service bay, so he hasn't got any view of the outside world or space. So, but you know, Kerbals love space, and this is his training. I need to break him so he doesn't try and escape back to Kerbin when like another vessel docks. He won't try and commandeer it and get back home. This is gonna like solidify. He will know nothing of his past life. All he knows is space and space station, and so that's really the crux of this. This thing. I don't know why I'm trying to justify this, but whatever. As you can see, I've now plotted our mid-course crash and burn for 20 meters per second. Very nice. That's going to get us an encounter with Dres. I didn't really feel like fine-tuning it by much because, again, like I said earlier, but to a lesser extent, generally what the maneuver node says you're going to end up with once you've done the burn is very rarely the case unless you have very, very good thrust-to-weight ratio. Like if the burn is like 3 seconds long, and that's how long you spend burning, yeah, what you end up with is probably going to be pretty close to what the maneuver node tool said you're going to end up with. But big, long burns, like 6 minutes 50, that's kind of like a mid-range burn in terms of length. I was like, we're only going to get kind of somewhat close to what the maneuver node says, so we'll do a very gross encounter, which is what I'm doing now. And then, once we've done this, I'll then do another maneuver node plan that's going to get us as close as possible. Now, I was kind of a bit unsure about what... Oh, hang on. Guys, I've just had a moment. I think, thinking back to when I did the commentary of building this craft, I started a tangent. I don't think I finished it. I said that this is kind of not the first episode of me building out infrastructure around Dres, because I did a video a few weeks ago where I visited Dres to showcase Proxima's better Dres mod, but I don't think I ever finished how that even ties into this. But during that showcase of Proxima's better Dres, I put a satellite into polar Dres orbit that has an ore scanner on board. So when we land the little mining lander, we can make sure it lands in a place that's very rich with ore that we can mine. And there's the satellite in orbit around Dres there. And then the rover on the surface, that was just part of the better Dres showcase mod. It won't really serve any useful purpose for our Dres gateway station. Well, that was... I mean, what I should do now, if I was professional, is I should stop right now and go back on the timeline and just see if I did finish that tangent, or if I didn't, edit the commentary. But to be honest, guys, it's 7:30 for me. It's Friday, and so that means this goes up tomorrow, and I haven't eaten my dinner yet. I'm cooking dinner. I'm cooking a nice curry tonight for me and my partner, and you know that takes like an hour to cook, and I got to do the washing up afterwards. Got dishwasher's still broken, so yeah, I've got kind of a long evening ahead of me. I don't want to be eating too late, but also I don't like skipping Saturdays because I mentioned YouTube members and Patreon members earlier. People do pay to support me, and I feel bad about denying them the content that they're paying for. I missed a week a couple of weeks ago, so I don't like doing too many skipped weeks. One of the reasons why I'm so late making this video today, like I don't normally leave it this late. Normally if I leave it this late, I'm like, sorry guys, I couldn't get the video done in time. But the reason I was a bit late this time is because I started making one video, and then I put that on pause to make another video, and then I put that one on pause to make this one. So I'm kind of doing like a Lord of the Rings thing right now. I'm making 3 videos all at once. So another video I've made, you can actually see evidence of this video's existence in the background of this video. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed there is a satellite in orbit, very close in orbit to Kerbin's orbit around the sun, that was called the planetary... I might not have shown it, but I know at some point during this mission I hovered the mouse over it just to see what it was, and it was that, so maybe it came up in the video, I don't know, but it was called like Planetary Defense Satellite. So yes, I'm doing like a little video about planetary defense, like we've got a satellite that detects asteroids, and we've got an asteroid on impact with Kerbin, we've got to send up a spacecraft to go and redirect the asteroid. So that's a little fun video I'm working on. I've done like the first half of it. I built this cool little SSTO that launches an interplanetary satellite, and I've kind of got it set up so I have an asteroid on a collision course with Kerbin. Someone on my Discord server, Lowne I think it was, helped me out with that, so thanks to her. I'll mention it properly in the video when it comes out. So kind of got that on the go. I've also got a Blunderbirds on the making as well. It's going to be fun. There's like some person on Reddit, they crashed their ship, and then they sent a rescue mission with Kerbals on board and crashed it. So they sent another rescue mission and then crashed it. So now there's 3 ships all crashed. So with Kerbals all stranded. So that's a Blunderbirds I'm working on. I think it's going to be a fun old time. And then I got this one as well, which I thought would be a nice quick video to make, because I'm like, oh, well, I've kind of tried doing too much at once, and now nothing's going to get done in time. I'll just go to Dres and do this simple little mining ship, because, you know, me and Beardy Penguin managed to do it all in 24 hours of the esports event. That was going to Juno and building space stations, and we had a Falcon 9 replica that landed itself, and then I think about it, like, I didn't have 24 hours, really, to make this. I had, like, 6. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I was a bit over ambitious. And as you can see, I probably should have mentioned this, we ran out of fuel. I thought I would have enough fuel in the nuclear engine stage to circularize around Dres, and it would be fine. And what remains of the liquid fuel in those kind of nuclear engine like nacelles, they could just deal with themselves and crash. But we ran out of fuel, so I had to start transferring liquid fuel from our lander here into those nuclear engines so we could finish our circularization around Dres. But now we don't have that much delta V left in this ship. So I'm like, if we've got enough delta V to land on Dres, which takes about 430 meters per second, I can then mine for fuel, fill up its giant liquid fuel tank, and then we will be safe and sound. But until then, I was like, I might need to do a rescue mission, or at least a refueling mission, so that this craft could complete its journey to Dres. So you'll have to see how that pans out. Now, speaking of Dres, it's no longer visible. Well, Dres is visible, but the thing I'm about to say is no longer visible. I forgot that when I filmed my Proxima's Better Dres mod showcase, I'd obviously done something wrong with the install, because we have Dres and then a spooky ghost Dres around it. And it's not even October anymore, so I can't even say I did that for Halloween. So, yeah, from a certain altitude in the gameplay screen, so not the map screen, there's like a ghost Dres. I need to write this down and remember this so I can fix this before I come back to Dres. Well, I don't know when that's going to be, because Dres is kind of boring, but it's much less boring, as you can see, with Proxima's Better Dres. And one of the benefits of Proxima's Better Dres, specifically for me in this mission, is, you may have noticed, our lander here is very tall. So to try and keep it as stable as possible on the surface of a Dres or wherever, I've not only got landing legs, but I have grip pads as well to really make sure it stays anchored in place and doesn't slide around when I touch down, basically. But it is still very, very tall, and it will want to topple over. But luckily, with Proxima's Better Dres, it's really easy to see which areas are relatively flat, because any kind of steep slope has that lighter coloured grey texture, and the flatter areas have this darker sort of brownish grey texture. So that made things a lot easier when it came to selecting a landing spot. And as you can see, we've landed with 55 meters per second of delta V remaining. This is probably one of the closest clutches I've had in Kerbal Space Program as of late. Yeah, like I say, I genuinely wasn't sure if I would need to send a refueling craft, but I was very, very thankful I didn't. Okay, this is just Future Matt jutting in here. If you have photosensitive epilepsy, look away from the screen now, because during the mining process on Dres, there's going to be some flashes of light as I time warp rapidly. There's going to be flashing between the night side of the planet and the day side of the planet, and I don't know if it's going to be extreme enough to trigger any photosensitive epileptic seizures, so that's your warning. We're going to be touching down on Dres later, doing some more mining. The same warning applies, so there you go. I will now splice back to the bit of commentary I was just talking about. So I think I was talking about like refueling and the efficiency, or like not ditching the nuclear engines. I don't know. Enjoy. This is terrible. I'm so sorry. I know there were things I could have done to make things more efficient, so you may have noticed what I could have done is when the nuclear engines ran out of fuel, I could have just ditched them and then circularized using the lander's chemical engines, and then I might have had more delta V after that. I'm not sure, because we obviously wouldn't have been moving quite as much dry mass. We've got those big, heavy 4 nuclear engines and all those fuel tanks, etc. But that would have left those nuclear engines just drifting in interplanetary space forever, and we can't be having that. So I thought if we could try and salvage this so that those nuclear engines can be crashed safely into the surface of Dres, and, you know, not left as in the perpetual space debris, that would be ideal. So that's kind of why I did this, potentially not as efficiently. But look at that, I guess none of that really mattered, because as you can see, we have fully refueled. We have a full liquid fuel tank with 9,000 units of liquid fuel on board, and, you know, about 1,300 meters per second of delta V on board the craft, and that doesn't include the liquid fuel. I mean, it does, because I forgot to disable the liquid fuel tank, but because these engines require an equal ratio of liquid fuel and oxidizer, the additional liquid fuel we have on board doesn't really change our overall delta V value, if that makes sense. So now we can go and rendezvous with the space station and put it in its final place. Well, I guess we can move it whenever we want, right? Because the refueling craft could also act as a little shunt vessel, and we can use it to relocate the space station if we so desire. I was a little bit unsure about where to put the space station, to be honest. So initially I was like, I'm going to put it in orbit around the wormhole, because that would just seem like the best place. But then I was like, well, if I, were to uninstall the Promised Worlds mod or something like that, or like something gets changed with the mod, it might render the orbit of the space station a little bit unstable. And also, I don't know, I don't really trust the wormhole to not do weird things to the space station while it's in orbit. So I feel like, because I'm a YouTuber, I will probably make the thumbnail have like a picture of the wormhole in it. That's for illustrative purposes. I'm sorry if that's skirting the line too much along like clickbait, but it's to illustrate that this is the wormhole gateway, right? I made a little flag for it as well. I don't know if you noticed the little custom flag I made. I'm keeping that one to myself. I'm not sharing that one. If you want to make your own, then make your own. You can use like Photopia or something. It's like a free version of Photoshop online, and you can just make it. It's pretty easy. But yeah, as you can see, we have Dres underneath us. I'm just glancing back at the screen trying to refresh myself what's happening right now. Oh, I'm just getting an encounter with the space station. There it is. So yeah, I just do the lazy approach, just burning towards the target, killing all of our speed, and burning towards the target again to gradually maneuver our way towards it. And then I'll be doing a lazy, stupid way of docking with it, and that is just going to be using the Lowne lazy method of docking, so just having SAS auto hold target, and then both vessels just align with each other, and then we can just dock. I mean, I guess it's not that realistic because this is a really massive space station, and logically to me, it doesn't make sense that the space station would do this, but, whatever. But also we've not really got RCS on board the lander. I guess we sort of have those 4 Werner engines, but we can't really use them for sort of fine-tune RCS maneuvering, like, for example, docking with a space station. I guess we could dock with one of the side-mounted docking ports. It's kind of on the edge of the main kind of liquid fuel tank, but it's just easier to do it this way. And again, having the lander here, it's in line with the center of mass of the gateway station. So if we did want to move the space station, we could, because we're in line with the center of mass. We can use the lander's engines just to relocate the craft. And here we are, transferring the liquid fuel into that tank. And as you can see, I messed up. I forgot to disable the liquid fuel tank where we lifted off from Dres, and so the Terrier engines drained, the fuel tanks they were supposed to drain from, and also the fuel tank they weren't supposed to drain from in equal amounts. So now the lander has too much liquid fuel on board, and the liquid fuel tank has not enough liquid fuel on board. But I feel like we've proved the concept that this lander can make the journey from the space station down to the surface of Dres and then back again. It has enough fuel to do that. So, going forward, I feel, and this ties in a bit with Promised Worlds. So Promised Worlds added a feature of Kerbal Space Program 2 that was promised to us, but of course we never got because Kerbal Space Program 2 was cancelled and it's dead, basically. One of the features, again, that was promised was supply routes. So that basically you could do something like I've just done. So fly a lander from a space station down to the surface of a planet, gather materials, whatever, then fly back. And then once you prove that it can do that, you can then press a button that says repeat indefinitely. And then the game will just automatically run that route because all the numbers there make sense. And so now I have proven that the lander can indeed do the thing it was supposed to do. I'm happy to now just keep the space station topped up using, fuel cheats. Because, we can just pretend the lander went down to the surface because it could do that in theory. Although I guess not technically yet, because the space station wasn't in its final orbit when the lander went down just then. And so, what we're going to do, well, first of all, I'm going to just set up the space station, so get the ring spinning, get the solar panels deployed, and of course deorbit the nuclear engine stages that we now no longer need. And then we're going to go down to the surface and refill the lander again, this time so that we can actually completely fill up the space station's fuel tank rather than leave it about 1,000 units short. And then, and then basically do the thing that I was just said I've proven, basically. Talking's hard, isn't it? So yeah, just doing the same thing. Had a bit of an incident here, almost took out some of the solar panels because I forgot the orientation of the space station and this thing clipped into one of the service arms that host the solar panels, but luckily nothing broke, so all was fine. And then we're just going for a super stupidly steep entry profile. Well, I guess it's not entry because it's an atmosphere, but collision course into the surface of Dres, just to ensure that we are going to be slamming into the surface as fast as possible and thoroughly destroying absolutely everything on board. Here we go, we're going to enjoy a lovely explosion together. Excellent stuff. So yes, the nuclear engines have been discarded, so now we're pretty much in our final forms. Let's quickly go cut to the tracking station so we can go ahead. Oh, I've got a Kerbal on EVA there. He's probably a Kerbal that's like on EVA from the Minimus server space. Probably should get that Kerbal back on board, but that's a story for another time, isn't it? But yes, now it's time to continue with the mission. Oh, I just realized I've been saying something wrong the entirety of this video. I thought the capacity of those liquid fuel tanks was 9,000 units, but I now see that the capacity is 10,000 units. So actually, this space station has the capacity to perpetually store, for now at least, we can expand it later on, it can permanently store 20,000 units of usable liquid fuel for an interstellar craft at any point, because of course we not only have the big fuel tank on the space station, but we have the big fuel tank on the lander. And the idea is the lander will just always be refueled, so it will go down to the surface once, fill up the station tank, go back down again, fill up its own tank, and then come back. So there's always 20,000 units of liquid fuel on board the station at any one time. Now, the Mark III liquid fuel tanks, which is what I'm using there as the fuel reserve tanks, are not the most space-efficient liquid fuel tanks, basically. The most space-efficient ones, I believe, correct me if I'm incorrect here, but I believe it's the Mark I fuselage. You know, the little cylinder, basically, but they can only store 400 units of liquid fuel, which it is fine because you can use loads of them. But when it comes to transferring fuel, it's going to be really tedious transferring fuel from hundreds and hundreds of little fuel tanks into hundreds and hundreds of other little liquid fuel tanks. It's far easier just to have as few fuel tanks to transfer between as possible, which is why I just went for the biggest fuel tank the game offers. So we just have one big tank that can just transfer everything in one click, basically. So that was the rationale there. I just quickly decided to rename our vessel so that the vessel logo is a space station for the space station and a lander for the lander. And I renamed them to just Dres Gateway and Dres Mining Ship, I think I called this one. Dres Gateway Mining Ship, I should say. And there we are, named it as a lander. And yeah, it's important that Durley Kerbin is on board this mission because although this lander is robotic, I forgot to do the most important thing in a Kerbal Space Program landing on our last touchdown on Dres, and that is, of course, planting a flag on the surface of Dres. So now I can atone for that mistake during, this mission here. Now, you might be wondering, Matt, you mentioned earlier that you had a satellite in polar orbit around Dres that will tell you where all the ore deposits are, or the best places to mine are. Why didn't you use it? And that's a good question, and I'm not quite sure why I didn't. This would have been a perfect showcase of that. I think I was just rushing. I was like, well, we got the biggest drills in the game, so I think it's pretty much an almost near guarantee that wherever you land, there is going to be mineable ore. Knowing the precise location of rich ore deposits is much more valuable when you only have the little drill and the little ISRU, but we have the big drill and we have the big ISRU, so it's less of an issue here. And that's a reason why I went with the big drills and the big ISRU, just to keep things as simple as possible. Look at this! Durley Kerbin is smiling there on his little portrait because I've opened the window, or at least I've opened the hatch that is covering his window, so we can finally see things as he pilots this vessel. So yeah, again, we've touched down on kind of a slanted area. We have those Verne engines just constantly firing to keep this thing upright. And whilst the ship is settling, we can go out on EVA. And because we've got a probe core in there, those jets, well, they're not jets, are they? Those little Werner engines can continue to fire to make sure that this vessel remains upright. And there we are. Thought I'd use the Making History DLC suit, because I haven't used this in a while. So in case anyone who's wondering what this spacesuit is, it comes with the Making History DLC. I don't really use it very much because, well, I guess because it looks old-fashioned, right? But that's the point. But I kind of like the SpaceX style suit and the ESA suit and the Breaking Ground suit. I just like those ones more. But I know there's something charming about the Making History suit that I quite like. So breaking that one out today, and I guess it reinforces the fact that this is like an ancient Kerbal habitat, living aboard this space station. In future generations, 100 years from now, a spaceship crew visits the Dres Gateway, and there's Durley Kerbin wearing his Soviet era spacesuit. I don't know, I just thought it was kind of cute. Anyway, we've again deployed the solar panels and deployed the radiator panels. In case any of you are wondering why throughout this video my craft never ran out of fuel, even though for the vast majority of the video's runtime I haven't had the solar panels deployed, and I haven't got any kind of non-deployable solar panels to provide power supply, nor do I have, what are they called, fuel cells. I do have RTGs. I thought I put RTGs on board the space station, but when I redocked it earlier, it didn't have that much electric. Well, it was missing some electric charge, which means I don't think there are any RTGs on board to keep it topped up. But it does have a massive solar array, so not really an issue. The lander, I thought it'd be more important to have RTGs because it's obviously going to be functioning throughout the night, and we might be landing in like a cavern or something. You know, there is a big Dres canyon, isn't there? And in fact, there's multiple Dres canyons on Proximus Beta Dres, just in case we landed somewhere where there is very little sunlight. I wanted to have RTGs so that we could remain topped up with power throughout mining operations. Yeah, there's the scale of this land next to that tiny little flag. It's a very big old thing. It was it was kind of difficult to steer, to be honest. I mean, the video probably doesn't really do that much justice because I speed the footage up, generally speaking, in videos to kind of keep them watchable. Like, this video would have been 3 hours long if I hadn't like sped footage up in places. And again, as I said, in the ancient times of about 30 minutes ago, I think it's quite fun to like watch my videos back and seeing like the big long burns happen at lightning speed when I knew in reality the frame rate was very low and the burn was very, very long. It's kind of satisfying to see things played back super duper quickly. And there we are, we're in a circular Dres orbit. Perhaps this is a little bit too low for comfort, but we will quickly address that by performing a pro-grade burn at Apoapsis anytime today. There we are, there's the burn there. And there we are, roughly circular orbit. So now we can think about plotting a minimum node that's going to get us back to the Dres gateway. So yeah, fairly trivial thing to do. There we are. In case anyone doesn't know, Dres doesn't have a moon. It does have that little ring. I don't know if that ring visually is part of Proximus Beta Dres, because I never really go to Dres. I can never really remember exactly what it is, but it does have an asteroid ring in stock Kerbal Space Program where asteroids will spawn. So hopefully they don't spawn and destroy the space station. I've just now thought I should have probably checked if this is a thing that can happen and what orbit they generally spawn at. So, can anyone in the comments let me know if I might have messed up completely and I need to urgently move the gateway station out of the path of any potential spawning asteroids? I feel like the odds are, if you will, astronomically low, but still non-zero. So if there's a better orbit I should put this thing in, then let me know. An example of like a place where you really have to be careful about where you put your space stations and stuff is Juno, because Ike's orbit, Ike orbit's fairly close to Juno, and Ike has a fairly large, well, I should say a relatively large sphere of influence. It's very easy to put a space station around Juno that's just a bit too high, and then it will eventually get sucked up into Ike's sphere of influence, which will either sling it into the surface of Juno or out of the Juno system, or, you know, the space station just crashes into Ike. So, yeah, just a little word of warning there. It's completely irrelevant to this video, I know, but just saying. I'm just saying. That's why I kind of, that's how my mind arrived at the possibility that, oh, are asteroids a thing? Because I remembered the whole thing about Juno and Ike. I don't know. Like I say, I tried to do this commentary in essentially one sitting. I don't know how obvious it is because I got things to do this evening, right? You know, it's nearly 8 o'clock now and haven't started my cooking yet. So, but look, there's the space station. So we're definitely on the home stretch, I think. A couple of things we do need to do. We, of course, need to dock the lander to the space station, which is kind of what I'm in the process of currently doing. And then I've got to kind of spin the ring up and for the first time, actually, now I think about it, cruel as it is, we need to get our Kerbal. What's his name? Durley or something? I've already forgotten. Get the Kerbal onto the gateway station. He can finally leave that lander after, you know, over 2 years stuck on. There is his name, Durley. After over, what does it say? 2 years, 40. Oh no, it's changed. Wait, I need to come back to the spaceship. Yeah, 2 years, 109 days, effectively on board the tiny little lander can. So. Yeah, I mean, I gave him a book. You know, it wasn't a very long one. It was a Biff and Chip book, but it was a book nonetheless. So hopefully that was enough to keep him occupied. But now he can finally rejoice. Well, in a second, I've got to do the important thing first. You know, looking after our crew is very much secondary when it comes to the factory. And we must transfer the liquid fuel. And look, I once again forgot to disable the liquid fuel tank initially. So once again, the Terrier engines consumed some of the liquid fuel that was reserved for the fuel reserve for interstellar craft. But whatever, I feel like we've got enough fuel on board that's usable. And, you know, I could just fully top up that kind of supply tank on the lander to full reserve, full capacity, pretty much guilt-free now that I've established that the lander can, in fact, go down from the orbit of the space station down to the surface of Dres, fully refuel, and then come back up again and redock with fuel to spare. Kind of like, you know, following the rules of KSP2, where if you can establish that a supply route works and you have enough fuel, you can just run it automatically indefinitely. And also, somehow I brought up this video a couple of times in this video, my esports victory with Beardy Penguin. In that video, we established that our refueling craft could go down to the surface of the moon and back again without running out of fuel, and then we could just use cheats to continually refill our vessels. So yeah, French esports rules, KSP2 supply route rules, not sure. But Durley Kerman is now safely on board the space station, on board the cupola module. The gravity ring is kind of boring because, again, I was limited to stock parts, so it's just a load of chairs in the gravity ring, but we can pretend there's like individual crew quarters, a mess hall, things like that in that spinning gravity ring. And speaking of the gravity ring, I am now spinning it up, and we'll cut to a UI-less shot of the space station floating serenely above Dres, and also with the sun in the background. And also what is visible are the names of my Patreon and YouTube channel members who make all of this content possible. Thank you so much if your name is on screen. And look at what else is on screen. We've got Durley Kerbal there. That took me ages to do that masking, and now I've covered it up with 2 videos. But hey, if those videos look interesting, then by all means give them a little click, as well as subscribe if you haven't already, follow me, all that good shebang. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I certainly had a blast doing it, and I hope to see you in the next one, which I think will be Blunderburs, but I'm not